Hey, remember when we said, like, like, with terror that could become when we talk about Koei Warriors? I wonder how many people who listened to that didn't realize there's a second half to that. Hi, folks. This is the Crew podcast. I'm your host, Strauss. That's Sardo. This
It's
is
time.
it is time to engage. We've only engaged when it comes to Koei Warriors material with one half of it. It's time for the other half to finally get its due, which is
And
actually
this,
impressive because I would argue you're the bigger Dynasty Warriors fan,
yes, I am.
and we've had one, two, three, three episodes of it. I would say. I could just double check. And that's totaling in like how many minutes? Like
A lot.
a lot. It's a lot of time. That's
So many minutes.
like at least 5 hours worth of material.
Many minutes.
Many minutes. Guess what? We could do it. There's a whole other half, and there's even more characters. So we're gonna promise we're not gonna go over every character because that's like over 100 now, and oh god. So today I'm here with Sardo. We're gonna try to keep this brief for the standard.
For the
Sardo,
standard.
for the standard of we know this one's gonna be a bit long. We're sorry.
I'm not.
I mean, we're sorry in the sense that if you're listening to this, that it's going to be this long. But other than that, we're not sorry. So anyway, now it begins. My friends,
Ambition.
my Romans, my countrymen, ambition.
Ambition. Chaos.
Chaos.
It's time, Strauss. We're gonna talk shit. We're gonna talk about Dynasty Warriors. I was starting to talk and then I started coughing.
It started to murder you to try to stop you halfway through.
We're gonna talk about Dynasty Warriors.
You're not even. No one here's inebriated. We're just laughing. Or
I'm just silly. I'm in a silly, goofy mood because I'm talking about something I love.
It's true. So I guess we're first going to define what is a Dynasty Warriors, or technically speaking, its actual name is Shin Sengaku Muso.
Yes.
So we first should probably explain what the Shin in that means. So if you know any lick of Japanese, which I do, not much, but I do know a lick, and it's like a little lick like this.
It's a wee one, a blep of Japanese.
Little blep. The word Shin, S is romanized to SHIN, is the word new. Because Koei produced a Dynasty Warriors fighting game in the 90s that's not well remembered, or well liked, or beloved.
Unlike this.
Well, depending on who you ask, that still is a...
So you're telling me that this Dynasty Warriors, it's basically like Kevin and then the cooler Kevin.
Kinda, yes. So what happened was, so Koei has for decades now been producing a series called Romance of the Three Kingdoms, which is a strategy game where you take part in the fall of the Han Dynasty with the various factions that came out of that. We'll get more into that in a bit.
Yeah.
And in the 90s, with the PlayStation 1, they're like, fighting games are in, so are 3D fighting games. This Soul Calibur thing, which we have talked about, go watch it.
That shit'll never catch on, but this is the future.
Yeah. Episode 14, those two swords inside you, both are evil. Go listen to that. We talked about our love for Soul Calibur.
It's very good.
Very good. We like it. And so they made a fighting game. This was known as Dynasty Warriors in English. It didn't do well, and it looks really bad. Have you ever seen any of the stuff from it?
Oh yeah, it's kind of rough. It's pretty rough.
It's like, it's not like how. Oh, rough is correct, but I want to define what we mean by rough real quick. Because, like, the original. Have you ever seen the original graphics for Virtua Fighter?
Yeah.
Like, those are also rough, but, like, in a good way. This is not.
Like rough charming and then rough unfortunate. This is rough unfortunate.
Rough derogatory.
Mhm.
And boy, is this one derogatory, because it looks like all the models look like plastic. Every character looks goofy. They have odd looking everything. Everything about this is bad.
It's really this came out in 1997. I'm doing a quick Google image search again to remind myself of what we're working with, and oh boy.
Yeah. No, like, just to remind you, I'm gonna list some games that came out in 1997
Mhm.
that are also 3D. Just we're starting here because we need to set the stage for history.
A Tale of Souls and Swords, Eternally Retold.
Symphony of the Night came out that year.
Uh-huh.
That looks better. That's Sprite, though. Age of Empires 1. Diddy Kong Racing. GoldenEye 007. The original Fallout's from this year, too.
Oh, shit.
Oh, man. Oddworld. It's Odyssey. Are you a big Oddworld fan?
I do enjoy Oddworld.
That is a very you series. And I don't mean that as an insult. I just
I take that as high praise because I love Oddworld.
The Yoshi Stories from this year.
Oh.
Star Fox 64, which looks better than this.
And okay, so with that in mind, I can.
No, there is one game I'm skipping over. We actually have talked about it.
Mm.
Do you want to take a wild guess what it is?
Tell me what it is.
It's Final Fantasy VII.
Oh.
I'm going down the list of just what Google popped up, and you'll notice that Dynasty Warriors is not on here. There's a reason for this. It wasn't very good. It wasn't well liked. I'm going to look up Dynasty Warriors 1 and to see if I could find any statements on it. Because
It was a game.
It was definitely a game. And it's funny because they had this original game and then they had the new one, which is so funny to me.
Mm-hmm.
Because that means that they still consider this original one as a thing. Think about that for a minute. Oh god, sorry, I just saw the image of the box art. It's so bad. Let's see. This game, came out to mostly mediocre reviews, which is the funny part. Because it's the aggregate side game ranking has it as a 78%, which makes me very curious of how the hell this. Hold on, I need to read this one review. It was called a fluid, masterful fighter, a breath of fresh air in a world of repetitive, eye-candied wannabes. I think this came out before Soul Calibur, actually. So
is it affectionately calling the game ugly?
I don't know. It apparently was okay for 1997, but boy, does it look rough. We call this aging like milk.
See, I feel like that review is just a way of saying, well, she has a great personality.
It does feel like that, doesn't it?
And she has a great personality, to be sure. Wow. So, anyway, yeah, we start out with a fighting game.
So, somehow, someway, this is where, we should mention a massively successful franchise starts out in a different genre. Actually, that's not fair. A massively successful franchise that makes its own genre starts out as a fighting game. Just absolutely. It feels random. Random.
going into this, let this be a lesson that the medium you start out in does not always have to be where you create your masterpiece.
As Koei
You can
Tecmo has learned, that is very much the case.
you can be pretty mediocre at the thing you start out in and then do something totally different and that's your thing. So,
I
anyway,
I actually looking at this, and I'm gonna keep looking at it because I actually think we might have a very interesting case here. This might be one of the better reviewed in the West Dynasty Warrior games.
is so.
Well, okay. So in let's see, in the year 2000, 3 years later, Shin Sengaku Muso comes out, aka Dynasty Warriors 2, which is of course the original Dynasty, which is by all accounts and purposes the first Dynasty Warriors as we know it.
Yes.
It is by Metacritic technically worse. Now, this would also begin the very long-standing Western press doesn't like Dynasty Warriors very much.
And to be fair, uh, the Western press, especially video game wise, has not always been kind to a lot of Japanese media. There was a whole thing in the early aughts of like, wow, this game is fucking weird and it sucks because it's one of those wacky Japanese games.
Yeah, but in the case of Dynasty Warriors, this is one where I don't even think it's the wacky Japanese part. It's just they. Well, okay, I was looking at the scores for 6. Even fans don't really like that one. That doesn't count. That one's cheating. That one's cheating.
6. We'll get to 6. 6
Yeah.
is polarizing.
Yeah. But famously, Dynasty Warriors has never done super great in the Western press. It feels like this weird thing, like disconnect between like people who like it. Wow, really? I'm shocked by some of these scores actually. I'm gonna be super honest, Sardo. I'm looking up some of these scores. I am shocked how low some of these things are.
Give it to me straight, Strauss.
Well,
what are we looking at here?
Like, obviously, I'm not counting the polarizing ones, because that's cheating. Like, we could talk about 9 or 6, but like, for example, now it is considered by the fan base that we are a part of that 7 or 8 and like 3 are like the best ones, depending on who you ask. Especially 7. 7 scores is on Metacritic is 57. Now, mind you, Destructoid gave it an 8 because I think at the time when it came out, I think Stephanie Sterling was still reviewing on Destructoid.
Huh?
I think. IGN gave it a 5.
Oh.
Which is, there's a lot of things we could say about why that could be the case, but I'm surprised that it got a 5.
That is remarkable.
And now, mind you, I will say this, 8 fared much better. IGN gave it an 8.7, so they got someone who actually likes these games to start talking about it.
Yes.
But yeah, so famously speaking, we need to talk about what these games are first before we get into the real meat and potatoes. And why these review scores are interesting. Because Dynasty Warriors created a whole genre, as Sardo would know, and I would know, and some of you who are listening to this definitely know. And that is known as the Muso. It's called out because it's spelled Musou in English. I can't read kanji, so don't ask me. I don't know how I would draw a kanji for you with my voice. It looks like
that's impossible.
It's a bunch of lines. I don't know how to do that. But it's would you like to describe what that looks like?
You beat a bunch of dudes up at the same time.
Kinda, yeah. It's sort of like you're plopped onto a map. with the character you're playing, and you go around hitting things with a stick, and you beat up a whole bunch of guys, like an incalculable amount of people for one person to do so.
Yeah. And you rack up like a kill count basically, and it's in the upwards of 100.
If you finish below 300, you were actively not trying to hit people.
Yeah.
Some games it's a bit different from others. Like some games get you a lot. I think that's fair to say.
Mm-hmm.
Some games, like more recent games, the numbers have gone way farther up. I think that's totally fair.
Yeah.
But yeah, and you fight, and when it's a named person who did something of some renown to be in the history books, they're an officer and they have a health bar and you beat them up too. And
they usually have a much better design.
Well, it depends. There's the generic officers, which is just random people. I mean, they do have a better design than the rank and file. And then if there's someone who's really important, they have a silly outfit and a weapon that sometimes makes sense and sometimes very much doesn't.
Well, we'll get more into that.
We're going to get into that. So, yeah, that's basically what the game is. You get plopped on the map, you do objectives until the map is over and you win. And then the guitar comes in and goes...
And if you've played enough of those games, that riff will haunt you.
It does.
All your life.
I was able to do that with no prompt. I haven't played a Dynasty Warriors game in a hot minute. So I knew that by heart. I've played enough of these games to know that by heart. And they've never changed it. And good on them.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
It's like the original... It's like the Super Mario theme. You don't need to change it. You just need to make it bigger sounding. And oh yeah, a big part of this is the power metal.
Yeah. The soundtracks in this are unfailingly bangers.
Well, okay, so we should mention that. Because the music is very different in Dynasty Warriors than it is in Samurai Warriors. Samurai Warriors is much more traditional instruments with like some techno beats and some guitar work. Whereas Dynasty Warriors is a lot of guitar.
It's so much rock and it's so good.
It's not butt rock, it's more like power metal. I think it's probably the closest genre.
Yes.
Japan really loved the power metal genre. Like, way more than anyone else outside of Europe. Yeah. Probably more than Europe, honestly.
And it fucks.
There's one theme in particular that we're going to have to mention, but we'll save that for later.
Yeah.
There's a reason why it'll make sense, I promise. But yes, so that is what a muso is, and this is a whole subgenre of games, basically. Like,
and it's got... Sorry, go ahead.
And which is incredible because that's not common. Like, how often do you see a new genre get made in anything?
Not often.
No, it's not.
And I think the thing about the muso sort of genre is just that it feels good on the brain to play. Like, I get home from a bad day at work, and I just want to plop down in front of the TV and just kill 300 dudes.
Nothing makes you feel better than a bunch of silly, weirdly dressed people going around beating up like 400 guys in 2nd century China.
I want to be a big man on a big red horse with a big spear, and I just want to I want to clear like 20 guys with every swing. And there's of course there's like, a thought behind it, but God, it just feels powerful.
Yeah. And now what happens here is that Dynasty Warriors specifically, and we're using that specifically because the Samurai Warriors is about all the Sengoku stuff. Dynasty Warriors is about the Three Kingdoms period in China. Sardo, would you like to talk about what this means?
Dynasty Warriors was based specifically, and I mean, it was based on the Three Kingdoms period in China, yes. But it was modeled more specifically on the Romance of the Three Kingdoms, which is a fictionalized account of
It's
the
a
Three
romance.
Kingdoms period.
We should note that we are talking about a Ming era novel. Don't remember when it specifically is considered first published.
It was first published.
It was
No,
published 1522, so in the
by
16th
Luo
century.
Luo Guanzhong.
Yeah, by Luo Guangzhong. It is considered one of the four great classic novels of China and of Chinese literature. For
And
those
as
who want to know
go ahead.
what the rest of those are, I might as well just state what the other three are, right? The other one is The Water Margin, or Outlaws of the Marsh, depending on how you want to call it. Also known as All Men Are Brothers. I didn't know about that one. The other one is Journey to the West, very important.
Yes.
Jin Ping Mei, or The Plum in the Golden Vase, and The Dream of the Red Chamber.
Yeah.
And there is like an unofficial fifth one, just because why the fuck not? Called The Scholars. Because fuck it, why not? I don't think it counts because it was it might count. I don't know.
And Romance of the Three Kingdoms, as with a lot of novels
I just
based
realized that
upon
was
history.
I just realized that's basically I just stated six different novels. Oh man. Anyway, go back to your thought.
Romance of the Three Kingdoms, as with a lot of novels based on history, plays kind of fast and loose with the history it's discussing.
It needs to be noted that it's a romance. Basically, it's much like the Song of Roland. It's not a
Mhm.
it's a fictionalized version of actual history. And
And there's
go for it. You just finish your thought.
uh, there's some great stuff in Romance of the Three Kingdoms that I'm very sad that Dynasty Warriors doesn't cover.
I,
Uh,
understandably
not
why in certain
not
cases.
not limited to my personal favorite, the great and noted and arguably overhyped tactician Zhuge Liang insulting a man by letter so bad that the man who got insulted literally died.
There's a lot of that. So basically, Romance of the Three Kingdoms is about how at the end of the Han Dynasty, which if you know your Chinese dynastic history, you know this is the big one.
Yeah.
And when we mean the big one, I believe it's the longest reigning dynasty
Hmm.
in Chinese history. It's or one of them. I'm pretty sure it's the longest. It's like 400 years.
I believe so.
It's also in turn like where a lot of like what makes China China comes in. Very important.
It's very formative.
Yeah, it's this incredibly formative period to what China would become for the next like basically until the fall of the Qing dynasty. So, the last one. So, most of Chinese history.
It was a big fucking deal.
It was a big fucking deal. And it should be noted that like even in modern China, the major ethnic group refers to themselves as Han Chinese. Their language is still written in Han characters. A lot of things that are like we just think of as quintessentially Chinese starts here. Like when we say it's the big one, we mean that.
It was very influential.
And its breakup was equally influential. Because, as we know, it does not end well, because nothing ever does.
No, of course not. Why the fuck would it end well? Nothing ever ends well.
Well, some things end well.
Sometimes. but
My
not in
last
this case.
dinner ended well, depending on how you wanted to find well. The bad
Very
part was I had no
positive.
more dinner.
Oh.
That's the problem with food. Eventually you have no food because you ate it.
So, I guess when we talk about what Dynasty Warriors encompasses, and this changes in scope over the successive games, but by and large, Dynasty Warriors covers a set time period within the end of the Han Dynasty.
Yes, and we should note that it does start at the end because it will go into then the Three Kingdoms period, which is this very short-lived but very also highly interesting time period. Don't worry, we will get to this. It basically, the book covers the end of the Han to the beginning of the Jin dynasty. And within it, there is a lot of very important people who do a lot of very important things. Such as insulting someone so hard that they die via letter. The time someone, and this one actually happened, took a force of 800 and told 100,000 people to get fucked. And succeeded. This is a thing that actually happened and not something we made up. And actually, this leads to a very important question for you, Sardo. Have you ever read Romance of the Three Kingdoms?
Yes, I have.
I have too. It's very long.
It's a lengthy one. I think I did read the majority of it on a flight with like 3 different layovers. So.
That is understandable. By the way, would you recommend the book?
Yeah. Yeah, I would.
I would too.
I think it's interesting.
I would say the first things first is understand this was, if you're going to read it, and if you can't read Chinese characters, you're going to be reading a translated version of a language that doesn't operate the same as English or whatever language you actually read in.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing I will state, and this is also very important, this book is a lot sassier than you think it's going to be. Because you assume, like, oh, these are people from, like, the 2nd century, 3rd century China. They're all very prim, proper men. No, they are petty, sassy, and insult each other all the time. It's great.
It's delightful. There is definitely moments of like, oh, fuck.
There's a lot of that. And now, anyway, the point is, Romance of the Three Kingdoms is a very important novel, especially within East Asia. It's huge in Japan. It's huge in Korea. All that good stuff.
And it's in its video game form here. Technically, it's Dynasty Warriors is I would say the best way I could put it, it's Romance of the Three Kingdoms abridged.
Yeah, kinda. And in fairness, abridging a lot of Romance of the Three Kingdoms is fine. It's a very long book.
Yeah.
We say this as people who have read this book. It takes a while.
It's lengthy.
It's lengthy, and it has no problem being lengthy and self-important and big.
It's very bombastic. It's very, yeah. It drums up a lot of hype for itself, and it buys into the hype fully. It's a beautiful cycle of hype.
Yeah. So anyway, it's big in Japan because, well, China's involved, and China. If you know anything about China's influence in East Asia, then this is unsurprising.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, point is, it gets made. So Koei makes Dynasty Warriors. It is a muso, and it's about it is this setting in full, sort of. We'll get there. But the first thing you need to know is, boy howdy is everyone dressed very silly. I think that's fair to say.
There's lots of people in very elaborate costumes.
And we do mean elaborate. But what happens is they make the first one in 2000, and the most recent one, 9, was released like 5 years ago, I think.
Yeah, pretty sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, 5 years ago in 2018. It sits on my shelf. I have the steel box. I got the nice edition for this game. Sorry.
I'm so sorry, Strauss.
We'll get into why Sardo just said so sorry. So anyway, it comes out. It's a big deal. Everybody loves it. So the question you're probably asking is, okay, guys, you clearly are fans. What is it like playing these games? Sardo, would you like to answer that question?
I think I gave a pretty good like description of like the gameplay aspect of it when I talked about just it's satisfying. It it soothes the bits of the brain that just need me to beat guys up, lots of guys all at once.
Yeah.
From a character and story standpoint,
And here's where things get interesting.
I
So the thing is, we should first start. What are the three kingdoms? We're doing this for reasons, okay? There are
the
three
Three
kingdoms.
Kingdoms.
There,
I want to put an asterisk next to those three kingdoms.
yes, there is an asterisk. You'll understand soon enough, as I'm going to mention something. The first of the three kingdoms is Wei, that in the north. In the southeast is Wu, and in the southwest is Shu, and then there's Jin. That's where the asterisk comes in. Surprise, there's a fourth one.
No, there's technically a fifth. There's other.
Yeah, there is other. We'll get into.
There's other.
Yes, okay, so I will describe other real quick. Other is basically a description, is basically what is used for characters who are basically unaffiliated or have their own faction, sort of. These are characters who are important key historical figures, but aren't a part of the Three Kingdoms because they weren't or they died.
It's Wei, Wu, Shu, guys who fucked off and did some other thing, and then Jean, way down the line.
Yeah, Gene, the real asterisks of, oh yeah, you guys, hi, you're the guys who actually won. Other has a lot of random characters in it, characters who make no sense to have. Or, like, for example, you have Nuawa, Fuxi. If you know anything about your Chinese mythology, you know that those people are definitely not from the Han Dynasty.
Mm-hmm.
They're neat, but they're not from the Han Dynasty.
We also have a wizard.
Oh yeah, he actually is from this time period. Yes, he's very weird.
Shuoxi, who is
Broomhead.
wizard, man of knowledge, really good at fucking.
That's the real one, by the way. That's not like the fake one. That's the real one that we're talking about, by the way.
He was very good at sex, apparently.
All the sex I'm having is the reason why I'm 200 years old.
So that's a little sampling of the people in Other.
Yeah.
And there's also some important people in Other who were real.
Who were definitely 100% real and big important. So the story of the Romance Three Kingdoms usually starts with the Yellow Turban Rebellion. Or the Yellow Scarf Rebellion, depending how you translate things. Yellow Turban sounds better.
Mm-hmm.
It's better also than some translations that I've seen, which is the Yellow Head Scarf Rebellion, which is probably the worst one.
Yellow Turban is the most, like, pleasing to the tongue.
It invoked something.
But this was essentially a peasant uprising against the then emperor.
Who was Emperor Ling, I believe, specifically.
Yes. 184 CE, during the reign of Emperor Ling, you are correct.
Oh man, I was not looking that up, by the way. I just know that.
I've got Wikipedia pulled up just for some quick
But
facts.
basically what happens is the story starts off with three characters, Liu Bei, Zhang Fei, and Guan Yu. They become steadfast brothers, And they're like, yes, you are my bestie for life, but much more violent.
We're besties who kill people together.
Like you do.
Yes, you do.
And then they go fight the Yellow Turbans. They win. Uh, Magic happens. If you know anything about Dynasty Warriors 3, it's probably from the English dub of it. This is where all those lines come from.
Which was very good.
Fool, you challenge me with trickery? I don't believe in magic. Onward!
Well, the enemy camp's pretty.
We could go. We're not just gonna quote things from the dub of Dynasty Warriors 3, which is magical and wonderful.
Dynasty Warriors 3 had a beautiful dub. A beautiful, stupid dub.
A beautiful dub in the sense that it is one of the most entertaining things you will ever listen to. That's the nice way of putting it.
It's great.
It's great. We love it. But after that, you have what is known. So after that, then comes this man named Dong Zhuo. He's an asshole. Nobody likes him.
He's historically an asshole. The Romance of the Three Kingdoms and later the games take some liberties with just how competent of an asshole he was. Because arguably Dong Zhuo was he was a very competent leader and like a very competent fighter as well. But
he was a general, but in turn, much like most people, he got a taste for the fire things and he got a little bit chubby.
And the games pretty much consistently reduce him to this like greasy fat bastard of a man.
He's great. We love him.
He's womanizing, he's slothful, he's gluttonous, he's all the bad things. And you're supposed to hate him. That's what he's there for. To have something that everybody's gonna unify against, because fuck this guy.
Which they do. And they make a whole coalition about it. It doesn't work because in reality, everyone was gunning for a spot, but, you know, that's the less heroic version of this statement, so we're going to pretend like it didn't happen that way.
And then comedically, he gets killed by his adopted son.
Yeah, so the funny part about history is that sometimes it doesn't play by the rule of cool and says, fuck you. You're
and
dead.
His son, who was his son, Strauss? I forget
this
guy.
is the time. This is the man known as Lu Bu. So remember when I talked about how sometimes a very important thing about the music, Lu Bu is so badass that he gets his own theme.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been around for years because Lu Bu is such a walking bad motherfucker that he will absolutely kill anyone who gets. There's a meme for this. Don't pursue Lu Bu. Trust me, you don't want to.
If you've seen anything in passing about Dynasty Warriors, you've probably heard "Do not pursue Lu Bu." You might have also seen the image of Lu Bu drinking a Pepsi Max, which is also a thing that Koei Warriors sponsored. They got
sponsored, but they've done advertisement deals because it's big in Japan, and Pepsi's big in Japan.
You might have seen Lu Bu drinking a Pepsi once before.
The cool, refreshing. When I feel the need to fight thousands of men, I drink a cool glass of refreshing Pepsi Max. I think it's specifically Pepsi Max. Hold on, I'm gonna look up that image. You keep going.
It was Pepsi Max, but
oh wow, I've seen that image too many times.
Lu Bu is known pretty much by and large in human consciousness as a big badass dude with a big badass halberd, spear, what have you.
It's
and
halberd. By
halberd, yeah. And a horse.
Yeah,
by the name of Red Hair.
Yeah.
Among men
is Lu Bu. Sorry. Among horses, Red Hair.
Yeah. Red Hair, also badass. In Dynasty Warriors, he is the color of flaming hot Cheetos.
And he's cool as fuck.
Yeah. So he's a big guy with a big horse. And yeah. So that's Lu Bu.
Yeah. basically, story-wise, if you want... Oh, by the way, the actual Pepsi, it wasn't Pepsi Max, it's something way funnier. It's
Explain.
Pepsi Next.
Peppy Next.
It's Pepsi Next. Zero sugar.
Wow. I guess Lupu can't have sugar.
Well, how else do you think he keeps his rippling abs?
Can't have shit in Shuhan.
Lubu took all the sugar. But yeah, our joking aside, the whole Dynasty Warriors thing is basically you go out, you fight a bunch of dudes with your bare hands, sometimes, or with whatever weapon you got, and then you do that. And now we're gonna talk about what people are really here for. All of this rambly preamble is for one purpose, and that is to basically remind you all what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're about to talk about, because we haven't talked about anything Three Kingdoms related since Wo Long. Like, at all. Which, honestly, is incredible restraint on our part.
I'm very impressed with us.
Wow. It took us, let's see, our last time talking about it was... Let's see, that was... Well, the last Wo Long episode was episode, 5? No, episode 9. So it had taken us almost 30 episodes. This would be episode 37. So it took us 18 episodes to not talk about this again ad nauseum. I mean, we mentioned it here and there for, Samurai Warriors, but that's only in the context of Samurai Warriors being a thing.
Yeah. We're back to it now, and oh boy.
Oh, Lord. We are apologizing now. Because we're already 30-some minutes in.
So, in
Actually,
these games...
I'm sorry, that's 40 minutes in.
Okay.
And now we're getting into the meat and potatoes. Take it away, Sardo!
So, in our quest to be the baddest dude, and to ultimately fail because it was the Jin Dynasty that ultimately did it, and they also collapsed. Thanks
Very
a lot,
fast.
John Unfong.
No, I love that, by the way.
Stress,
if you ever want to have a very fun story, everyone, go read up...
really makes you love these games as much as you do.
Well, before that, I want to finish my thought. If you want to have a very fun time, read up on the War of the Eight Princes. Watch as 8 dudes and 1 woman brew an entirely good thing in 30 years. This was somehow worse than what happened with the fall of the Han, and it took way less time. It is really funny. They're all related. They're all family too, so they're all it's just a large slap fight between brothers, uncles, and sons, and it's like, I want to be emperor. I want to be emperor. And then the empress is like, I'm the empress, and I'm also a bitch.
I'm a girl boss.
I'm a mean girl, but everyone here is bad. Everyone here is an idiot. And
everyone here sucks, and it's great.
And it ruins everything. And it's takes so little time. It is so funny. You could just hear Su Umayi being like, you fucking imbeciles. All of you. Some of you are my brother.
This era was preceded by the It's Always Sunny theme.
Yes. But anyway, how I feel about Dynasty Warriors. Dynasty Warriors is the comfort food of video games for me. One of them. You're absolutely right. There's nothing more fun than playing as these oddly dressed weirdos with silly weapons going around hitting people with them. As they shout about how important they are.
I just love fighting guys.
I love fighting dudes. I love fighting dudes with a boat over my shoulder. That's a real weapon.
And I will say, it's maybe not quite up there in terms of games like Yakuza in the spirit of this, but I love how Dynasty Warriors captures the essence of guys being dudes.
Absolutely nothing captures the essence of guys being dudes quite like Yakuza. That's very specifically, if you ever wanted to know what a masculine friendship looks like, and you don't want to talk to men, play a Yakuza game. it's kind of like this.
But Dynasty Warriors is an intellectuals version of guys being dudes.
Sometimes. Sometimes it's really stupid.
But I love how over the top it is. I love how absurd it is.
There is no point when you're playing this game where it is anything form of chill. So yeah, it's the essence of guys being dude, but very stupid.
Yes.
Sometimes.
And often, especially when it's like the more intellectual characters, it's usually the strategists that get up to the dumbest shit.
Yeah, for some reason you think the smart guys would be not the dumb ones, but sometimes they're just so petty. All these intellectuals, they can't stand each other. Like, one bit.
They're so catty.
They're so mad. But I feel like this is a good time to start talking about factions. The important part here. So, as we stated, there are technically 4 factions in these 3 kingdoms. So we're going to talk about them. We're going to talk about technically the first one. And I say technically because they don't get called that until after the fact. And that is the Kingdom of Wei. They're blue. Or purple. And they're led by Cao Cao, who goes, ambition. Chaos.
And the leaders of these respective factions tend to all have kind of a uniting theme. For Wu, it's family.
Family.
For Shu, it's benevolence, because Liu Bei is ostensibly the hero of this whole mess, as much as this 5-car pileup of unfortunate events could be, hero having. And for Cao Cao, who is evil.
Who is
adjacent.
Well, sort of. We'll get into that.
It's complicated.
This gets a lot more complicated than you think it does. And trust me, that's normal.
It's ambition.
Ambition. He says chaos a lot because he wants to bring down this chaos.
He's known as the hero of chaos because he arose from the chaos of the time to unify the land, or attempt to anyway. He didn't actually succeed in doing that.
In fact, most of the guys we're about to talk about, almost none of them did, which is the funniest part about everything we're about to talk about. Because the whole end goal is uniting the land. And, by the way, the person who unites the land, actually, I don't think anyone here unites the land. Now that I think about it, I don't think any of the actual characters are the people who actually does it.
Nobody in this cast, no playable character here unites the land.
We'll get into that real quick of who actually does it. So, you have Wei, they're the blue ones. They're usually the characters that are like the schemers, the ambitious ones. This has changed over the years. We'll get into that with 6. Wu's the family-oriented one, where everyone's a big, happy family until they're very much not.
And they kind of get the short end of the stick, by and large, in terms of things like screen time and character development, and it's rough.
And we're going to get into why that's actually kind of bullshit, but we'll get into that in a bit. And then there's Shu, who were technically the heroes of this because Liu Bei is the hero of the novel, because Lao Guanzhong happened to be from that area of China and therefore was doing propaganda.
He had no choice but to stand.
I had no choice but to stand my hero Liu Bei, despite the fact that he really has no claimant for being the benevolent one outside of the novel. It's really funny.
Liu Bei, as with a lot of these dudes historically, was just a guy.
He just happened to be a guy who happened to be good, smart, I guess lucky enough / smart enough / stick-to-itiveness enough. No, that didn't really roll off the tongue, but who cares? I'm rolling with it. Enough to be like the one in charge, one of the last few people in charge. It's kind of how the cookie crumbles, right?
Yeah.
Kind of like being Tokugawa Ieyasu, but instead of being very, very patient, you somehow just backstab your way to victory. There's a lot of backstabbing in this story. It is a comical amount of backstabbing.
Also, allegedly through his infant son. I'm pretty sure that didn't actually
Yeah,
happen,
no,
but it's funny.
that's most likely just a product of the novel, and to explain away some things about his son, who was very incompetent. Anyway, that's from the novel. If you ever wonder what a child looks like when they get spiked by a football and how they turn out if they live, Liu Shan.
Who did the best he could, given the circumstances of his life.
If you go by Dynasty Warriors, which is the nicer interpretation of Liu Shan's somewhat short rulership of Shu. Anyway, point is, what happens is, which is funny that it's called Romance of the Three Kingdoms, because like half the novels before that is even a concept. We should just mention that. It's really funny.
It's oddly named.
It's oddly named because the fall of the Han Dynasty, like, officially speaking, the Kingdom of Wei doesn't actually come to existence until, like, 220. By that point, Shu, Han, and Wu are already a thing. Which is just like, that's weird. I just think it's funny.
Yeah.
It's like, yes, the three kingdoms, and that third kingdom is, officially speaking, the kingdom of is the Han Empire.
Yeah.
Just one of those things that's just like kind of oddly named, because technically the Three Kingdoms period is 60 years. But the novel starts like almost 100 years, actually more than 100 years before that the Three Kingdoms period even starts, because most of these people start before that. Depending on how you want to define things. Point is, it's hilarious. But we have more to talk about. So let's get into
Yes, we do.
Let's get into the fun part, and let's talk about who owns what and who's considered important. And it starts, of course, in the north, where the Han Dynasty's seat of power is. And we need to talk about our good friend, Dong Zhuo.
That guy.
The guy everybody hated.
Genuinely, I do. I find him very entertaining.
Oh, I love the guy under the grounds that he's very entertaining and very funny. Like, this guy is so unlikable that everyone's like, okay, fuck this guy in particular. We don't like him.
The alliance against him is literally named the Anti-Dong Zhuo Coalition.
It should be noted that Dong Zhuo basically took... So what happens is the Yellow Turban Rebellion happens, and it gets put down eventually. But in the interim, in the court, for some reason, and I've always said this, if you want to know how a dynasty crumbles throughout, like, dynastic China, you usually just look at everybody hates the eunuchs. And it happens very often.
The eunuch's fault.
And basically, the eunuchs and the bureaucrats get mad at each other, because of course they do. And, well, what happens is the eunuchs kill the man in charge of the army. His name is specifically Heijin. He was the butcher of, like, wherever it was called. He's one of my... You want to know why I love this guy's nickname of the butcher?
Why?
Because usually when someone gets the nickname of the epitaph of butcher, it's usually because they're a horrible person and they kill a lot of people, right? Hudjin is hilarious because he was a butcher.
I think
literal statement.
He was born into a family of butchers.
Yes.
Nanyang.
So what happened is that Hudjin is this catalyst for a lot of stuff happening. Because he gets killed in... Yeah, he's Butcher of the Haze. And he's called that because his sister married Liu Hong, the emperor. But he was a butcher.
And historically in this period of China, being a butcher was like one of the lowest professions that you could have. It was not looked well upon. It was an unglamorous, like undignified profession.
Yes. So what's funny about all this is that he basically becomes in charge of the Imperial Army. And his death is this catalyst of all the eunuchs being murdered by the likes of Dong Zhuo and several other people. Because they're like, okay, these motherfuckers just killed the guy who's in charge of the army. That's not cool. Everyone went, excuse me? So they do. And after they murder all of them, Dong Zhuo is like, now I'm the minister. With an evil grin on his face. Like,
My city now.
And basically everyone's like, what? And then he starts basically ruling China because the emperor in question was like 5.
He was the quintessential puppet emperor.
Yeah. And there you go. And so this is where our story really starts in full here with the battle at Hulao Gate. Fun fact, there was no battle of Hulao Gate. That's because Lao Guanzong was just like, we need a fight scene here. Mostly the the coalition against Dong Zhuo is mostly just running around going like, "Arr," but never agreeing on doing anything. Very ineffectual. It's like Sardo and I trying to pick 3 ice cream flavors to be shared between us. I think we'd probably get into... we would be like, okay, this is one for me, this is one for you, but what's the third one that gets split between us? And we would probably spend like 30 minutes.
Yeah, I'd say that's fair.
Orange sherbet. No, I don't feel like it. Oh, what about cookie dough? We had that last time. And it's that for 30 minutes.
And I think this exemplifies the brutal lack of teamwork present throughout the Romance of the Three Kingdoms and its related incidentals. It's like, people cannot fucking get along.
They don't, because everyone's gunning to be number 1. And that's what happens when everyone's gunning to be number 1. No one wants to be a team player, and so some people take their ball and go home. Which is what happened to Sun Jian, because he's like, fuck this shit, fuck you guys. None of you wants to do anything except for that Cao Cao guy, who just got his ass kicked because he went with a way too small a force, and he knew that, hoping to spur something. So yeah, basically that's what happens.
As mentioned before, the coalition against Dong Zhuo does not actually deal with him. Dong Zhuo is killed by his adopted son, Lu Bu. The strongest man in China.
Yeah. And basically, and the rest of the story is what falls out from there. And you play through that story for Dynasty Warriors. I think we're getting lost in the weeds of the story when that only kind of sort of matters. So we're going to skip forward a bit to when... Because we could talk a lot about what happens with Dong Zhuo, because he's kind of very important here, despite only living for like 10% of the story at best.
It's a lot of shit off.
Yeah. So then what happens is, then everyone's like, we're going to do our own thing. Because really what the Yellow Turban Rebellion showed was that the central bureaucracy was such a mess that really everyone was on their own. That's what happens in these things. That's how you end up in a warring states period, is everyone realizes the states are on their own. Which is why Delaware will win the Battle of the 50 States.
I believe in them.
I believe in you, Delaware. But yeah, so so I guess we're gonna start with our feelings on factions. I guess now that we're gonna skip past the story for a bit, because we could just keep talking about it for hours.
And normally this is the bit where we would talk a little bit about individual characters here. We're not going to do that
No,
because
we-
the
okay.
cast
The cast is too big.
the cast is what, 80 strong?
Oh, it's bigger than that now, Sardo.
Bigger than 80.
It's over 100 by this point.
There's a fucking lot of people in this game,
Oh,
okay?
no. Many. Dynasty. Not Dynasty's in China.
How many warriors in a Dynasty warrior?
Your characters. 9 was the last one. 94. There are 94 characters in 9, and that's not including, like, the weird mystical characters that they sometimes put into these games.
Mostly present nowadays in the Warriors Orochi spin-off games.
Yeah, they're back in, like, in 3, there was a couple of, like, the mythological, like, Chinese emperors and mythological characters in it for funsies. You unlocked them, they were secret characters. Back when that was a thing that you could do.
Which was cool.
Back when games weren't heavily monetized. To hell and back.
But I think a good place to start with this is, okay, Strauss, what's your favorite kingdom?
Overall, that's tough. I would say overall my favorite is Wei. Because it's like, I can't really count Other. Because Other is like a bunch of non-affiliated people with their own faction.
I love a lot of the characters in the Other section, but it doesn't count as a kingdom.
Yeah, it isn't really. Yeah, it's like, I like the Other. Like, a lot of my personal. A good chunk of my personal favorites happen to be in Other.
Same.
I know. We both know this. I like how we're saying this like we don't already know this.
I'm saying it for the sake of the people
I
that are
know,
listening.
I know. It's just really funny to be in mid-conversation. It's like, oh, it's Other. And you had to be smiling out. It's like, yes, oh, fascinating. Despite the fact that we definitely already know that as an answer. I could have done that with a blindfold on.
We're explaining a lot of this for the benefit of the
Yes,
audience.
I understand that. I'm just saying it's funny. It's always funny when you have to answer a question that you know the person asking you absolutely knows that question. It could have been answered for you in like one of those couples games.
Hey, Sardo, what's your favorite kingdom? It's Shu.
I know for you it's not Shu.
It's not. Anyway, yeah, but
Well,
probably
beyond that.
Wei.
Yeah.
Probably Wei.
I think it's because I think for both of us, Wei are like the closest to bad guys. And so therefore they're usually the fun ones.
Think of the respective kingdoms as kind of that in the 80s movie when they're going through like, that's the jocks table, that's the geeks table. Like the Wei table is like they're the delinquents, they're the, you know,
They're the bad
they got
ones.
their combs and their leather jackets and they're, you know, they're the delinquents.
They're the bad ones who go at people.
But they also have kind of a... I find their interpersonal connections the most interesting of all the kingdoms.
I do too. And mostly because, like, they're the least united by, like, such a core, obvious central philosophy. Like, Wu is... I like Wu. We both like Wu, but we feel Wu does not get really enough material half the time.
Wu doesn't get enough fuel.
And part of that is because, for some reason, a big chunk of, like, the later Three Kingdoms period is mostly just Wu and Wei fighting each other in the East, being like, "Arr!" and going, "Arr!" and never making any headway. So it's both not very interesting, but also interesting, I think is a good way to put it.
Yes.
But that doesn't involve Liu Bei and Shu, so no one cares about it, according to Guanzhong.
Guanzhong really was like that time period's version of hardcore stans of something that go into a completely unrelated Twitter thread, like, yeah, I don't care, stream Liu Bei, and then like posting a gif of Liu Bei.
I mean, there's a lot of, like, historical reasons for that, but we're not going to go into that right now.
No, that's that's the surface level what it looks like.
Yes, that's what it looks like. But see, I think the reason why we like Wei so much, and by extension Jin, because Jin's just a continuation of Wei in a very odd fashion.
I've heard it called Diet Way by a lot of folks.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's a little unfair.
It is.
It's a little unfair, but it's also like, yeah, kind of, because technically speaking, the Jin dynasty doesn't even start in Jin.
Nope.
Like, the Jin faction, as they can be described as, is still technically all officers of what would be known as Cao Wei after the probably forced abdication of the last emperor of the Han dynasty. Because of course they were. So it's just really funny. They're just called that because it's to differentiate how these were the guys who won.
Yes.
And they show up actually hilariously not until Dynasty Warriors 7.
It took a long ass time.
Which makes sense because it's just like after a certain point the Jin stuff is mostly just putting down rebellions and then like beating up Shu. What remains of Shu anyways after years of attempting to invade North and failing miserably.
Since we're on this topic,
Yes.
now might be a good time to talk about the one guy who got in a little ahead of that and was... Because initially he starts with Wei. I want to talk about Sima Yi.
Okay, we need to talk about the quintessential character of this entire series, Sima Yi.
The dude of all time.
Now, I say quintessential because there's no character that absolutely... embodies what Dynasty Warriors is quite like Sima Yi.
He's so Dynasty Warriors.
Yeah, I remember, like, you might have seen the video of that one guy who ranked, like, who are all the Dynasty Warriors, and he put Sima Yi on top and basically said, when I imagine what Dynasty Warriors is about, it is this character. With him just cackling as he just beats up a bunch of people with his bullshit.
Sima Yi...
And he's right for it.
He was a tactician under Cao Cao, who eventually ascended to become, like... one of the dudes responsible for the Jin Empire becoming a thing.
Yeah.
He was ambitious, he was ruthless, he had a pretty intense rivalry with Zhuge Yang. Fuck.
The Morgana voice returns.
Zhuge Yang.
Zhuge Yang, everybody.
And he's very known for laughing.
Yeah, basically
has...
cackling evilly in the games and then going, imbecile.
Imbeciles.
A pack of imbeciles.
And he's smarter than everybody else. He thinks he's the smartest guy in the room at any given moment. And most of the time he's right. And eventually he has a very hot and scary wife.
Yeah.
And also some children that, because the game's mechanics don't really handle aging at all, look about the same age as him.
Yeah, it's one of those things that's just always really funny about these. It needs to be understood that it's because if you were to do the aging effects properly, well, some of these characters would die before they're supposed to.
Mm-hmm.
Basically the point is just that, yeah, it doesn't look right. And you have characters who are, like, talking to other characters who, like, by that point should be 80 years old, and they look like they're 32, at best. Or in the case of one of your beloveds, looks a lot older than he does because he can't stop coughing.
He's got the terminal sickness. He's down with the sickness anyway.
We'll talk more about him in a bit. Point is, I'm going to say when I talk about how much I like the Wei characters, I'm lumping the Jin characters in here too.
Yes,
because they're very interconnected in the grand scheme of things.
Genie's basically just Wei.
Yeah, it kind of is, in its own weird way. It's weird.
But I love Wei. I love its friendships. Friendship is magic.
Friendship is
These
magic, but
people are murderers.
friendship is magic. Everyone here is absolutely willing to this is the group of people who would absolutely shank a bitch for you in prison.
I think it's heartwarming. I think it's beautiful. It also has Zhang He, who is my beloved. I love him. He's beautiful. He's like Vega but good.
Yeah. And basically, all these characters have their own weird ambitions and wants, and they're the kingdom of ambitious people who do ambitious things.
And I think independence plays a lot into that. It's independent motivations. It's less for the common good and more for personally motivated good.
Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate, and that's also, I think, why they're very popular amongst, like, the Western side of the fan base.
Yeah.
Because they're, like, the ones who want to, like, do things their way, and what they think is the best way.
They're rebels, Dottie. They're loners.
I'm a rebel, Daddy. We're gonna need to talk about Pee-wee's Big Adventure at some point.
Yes. So moving on.
Let's
I
talk
think
about Wu.
maybe let's talk about Wu. Yeah.
So Wu is sadly out of the three kingdoms the one that gets sort of left by the wayside, because the problem is they don't really fight Shu that often. So therefore they don't really get to be spotlighted as much outside of their own stuff, which is admittedly the problem. I think the issue is the problem with Wu is not a lot happens there until the very end, when the game stopped covering what happens and puts it in the epilogue.
Yeah.
Because the joke here is their main ruler is Sun Shuang, and because of Sun Shuang's long rule, what was the joke about him?
I forget.
It was like, you may not be my lord, you may not be the smartest or the most talented, but you will be the last one standing. Which is what actually happens. Liu Bei and Cao Cao die well before Sun Shuang, because Sun Shuang is in fact younger than all of them.
Yes.
He was born in 182. To put this in perspective, Liu Bei was born in like 20 years earlier. And Cao Cao, I think, is even older. Yes, Cao Cao is almost 30 years older than he was. So he was like, my lord, don't worry. By the time they're dead, you'll still be alive. And he's like, you're right. I will be still alive.
He's literally the guy in the skating contest who won because everybody else fell over before they could reach the finish line.
I mean, he didn't win properly, but, like, conceptually speaking, he was the one who outlived all of his peers.
Yes.
Which is funny.
It is.
But yeah, so that's what happens. For them, the downside is also with a lot of Wu is that, like, their big shining moment happens actually very early on, which is the Battle of Red Cliffs, as it's generally called, or Chirby, as it's generally. Did you know, by the way, about the Battle of Chirby, that they don't actually know exactly where it took place? It's like, we know it's somewhere between these 2 points is where it happened. After that, we're not really sure. I love that about it. It's like, we know roughly where it happened.
Exactly where.
But yeah, basically, Chirby happens. That's their big crowning moment, is where they... Because at that point, Cao Cao had been rolling in the north, and it's like, if they don't stop him here, he's absolutely taking all of the south, and no one... And Cao Cao is going to win before he dies. He doesn't, obviously. Because, surprise, surprise, a bunch of people are very good at sailing, or very good at battling on the ocean, on the rivers.
Big surprise.
Surprise, surprise, people who are really good at fighting on water are good at fighting on water.
So, Wu is known mainly for one thing.
Family.
I mean, besides that,
Oh, okay. What is
it's
it?
known for having an absolutely unshakable DILF in the form
Oh,
of
yeah.
Sun Jian.
Wow. Okay. In fairness, I'm not wrong. It is about his family. Just.
But
Yeah.
we talked a little bit about this tendency with Koei Tecmo fans in our Samurai Warriors discussion with Toyohisa.
Characters you would see in gay porn. Sun Jian is the gay DILF of all time in this regard.
There is so much art of this man with his dick out, and I understand why.
Kissing other dudes.
Also with their dicks out, usually.
Oh, it's not as bad as Toyohisa, I will say. In the fact that if I was to look on an image hosting site that allows not safe for work images, there is a percentage chance of it not with him in a jockstrap.
There's higher ratios of him with his clothes on.
Yes. The
odds.
It's still not that high of a ratio.
The chance of seeing Sun Jian dick and balls are not always high, but never zero.
Yep.
There's I don't fault people for it at all because he is very attractive.
He's a very attractive older man, and his wife is never seen on screen. Therefore, the only people they have him work with is usually men.
It's lots of him kissing other men, and that's good. Good. And also his 3 children, Sun Shangsheng. She's definitely a lesbian, but she marries Liu Bei.
Politically speaking, if you even go through, even if you read the book, it is very obvious that there is no love between these two people.
Yeah.
It's okay. So first things first, we should talk about the name first because we actually don't know what her name is.
Yeah. There's a lot of female characters in this that it's like they maybe necessarily didn't exist in this capacity in history or what have you. There's some embellishing, and that's fine. Yeah. I'm here for more girls.
Okay, so like one of the biggest problems with this time period is of the things that survived, not everything is written down because it wasn't considered super important, and usually that means women are left out of records.
Shit's patriarchal.
Yeah, shit's patriarchal, especially China. Because thanks, Confucius. Prick.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Confucius.
Well, we can't now run in China. We can't tour China now. Strauss and Sardo apologize to Confucius. The Chinese government has forgiven Strauss and Sardo.
Sorry, Confucius.
But yeah, what that means is a lot of the times certain people's names were written down. Now, in fairness, they might have been written down. I will be nice. It might have been written down. It might not have survived. This was almost 2,000 years ago.
A lot of stuff is probably just lost to time.
And because there's a lot of fighting that went on for the next, 100+ years, it's very easy for shit to get lost.
Mm-hmm.
That's how that happens. To be fair. And sometimes it's like, oh, what was her name? I don't remember. We know who she is. We do know there is a Lady Wu. There is a Lady Sun, basically, as she's sometimes called Lady Wu. Basically, we know Sun Jian had a daughter of some capacity who got married to Liu Bei. We don't know if they're blood related or not because adopting was a big thing in East Asia.
Either way,
she's called here Sun Shangxiang, and for some reason they used to put a space between the Shang and Xiang, and now they don't.
Yeah, the romanization of stuff plays kind of fast and loose with things like spacing.
Yeah, we're not really sure, but point is, she is actually the first girl character in this series. That's fun.
She is.
But yeah, her most important relationship in this entire series has ended up being with her brother's favorite concubine. In fairness, Sun Shuang really loved her. If you read up of, the things that happened after Liang Shi died in real life. It's like, wow, he was into her.
He was down bad.
Like, this man is a wife guy.
And looking at Sun Quan both in the game and in records written about him, she was probably the best thing he had going for him.
I mean, she's also described as very hot, like in all of her accounts of her. So like, I get it why she liked him enough to be like, sure. Lady Boo Liang Shi was his favorite.
And in the game, she is a severe hottie.
Yeah, and even though, like, I will say this, Sun Shuang, as he's presented, is not our type.
He's kind of my type.
Well, okay, he's kind of your type, but he's not. He needs a bit of extra aging before he's ready to come out of. You're like, it's like he's like a steak. You need to put him in the dry aging room for a bit longer before he's ready.
I guess we'll skip over Sun Ce real quick. We'll get back to him.
Well, in fairness, Sun Shuang came into this game first.
But
we're just following what the games did.
Sun Quan is the middle child of the 3 Sun children we see here, and he's a loser.
Yeah, kind of. His brother is known as the Little Conqueror, who got most of this stuff started. His younger sister is like the hot girl of the family, and sort of,
and she's kind of a tomboy. She's a badass.
She's a baddie. She's neat.
Their dad is their dad.
Their dad is awesome. Like, he's called the Tiger of, like, Jingdong. Of course he's cool. The dude has he has a cool epitaph. That's cheating.
Sun Quan kind of gives me Michael Cera vibes.
Oh, I could make a comment about how he's voiced by Gideon Emery, and so they give him a much more cooler sounding voice than he actually is.
He does have a much cooler voice than he actually is. He's kind of pathetic. He's not very confident. He just doesn't really live up to the rest of his siblings or his father.
But he did rule the longest.
But he did rule the longest. He didn't die. Unlike his brother Sun Ce, who allegedly got killed by a wizard.
Well, I'm not sure. I don't remember how exactly he dies in real life, but he died very young. He died like 25.
Yeah.
Like, I know we talk about, like, mortality rate and the average age, but in the case of Sun Ce, he died shockingly early.
Yeah, like, Sun Ce's death was, like, a tragedy and unexpected and horrible and bad for all people involved.
Especially because he was very good at what he did.
Yeah. And there was a lot of stuff riding on him.
And he died very soon. Whoops.
He died very soon. But
it's true though.
But yeah, so that's the Sun family. Lots of tragedy going on with them. Life was hard. It's not easy being Sun Quan. It's a good thing you have this beautiful, beautiful concubine to dry your tears with. Anyway.
Yeah.
The other thing to note is that Liang Shi is probably the most buxom of the Dynasty Warriors ladies.
Oh god, it's from day one. When the moment she was added in.
Anyway.
You brought it up, not me.
Well, what was I talking about?
She breasted boobily towards the beach. I made you draw that, actually.
You did.
It was funny.
Make me draw that. But
all right, we've been avoiding them long enough. We need to talk about Shu.
She was fine.
Shu was fine. All right, let's move on. I'm kidding.
Shu.
Oh,
She was led by a man named Liu Bei.
Oh god, that should have told you everything that Sardo almost was like, oh, he's not kidding. He knows he knows we're about to say some takes. But no, we're not gonna shy away from it.
Liu Bei is in charge of Shu. At the age of 6, he was born without a face.
At age 6, I was born without a face. Yeah, no, Shu is an interesting faction as they are in the novel and in these games, historically speaking, the good guys. We read overwhelmingly so, which should be code for, yeah, no, they weren't.
Of course they weren't.
Now, mind you, to be fair, that's because this is based after a novel where they're the good guys.
Yes.
And not the actual history where it was very obvious that no one here's the good guy. Just everyone's various shades of fuck off.
And I want to put a fine point on this by saying, and
I think in the history of the fandom, there's been a lot of people that get really big mad about the way Shu is represented as overwhelmingly the good guys, and who take great pains to remind everybody that it's like, Liu Bei was actually a bad person historically. And it's like, okay, the thing is, by and large, a lot of the people involved in this story overall were probably not great people.
Yeah.
There were probably like some perfectly fine, upstanding moral dudes involved, but a lot of these guys were just dudes in varying shades of gray. But I think it's like there's a lot of people who really go the other way with Shu and get really, really mad about how it's depicted. And it's like Dynasty Warriors has gotten a lot more, I don't know, middle of the road with it in more recent games.
I think we can bring this up real quick, and just kind of explain, because historically speaking, Dynasty Warriors 2, which is where the actual ones that we're talking about start up, by the way, just to be clear. Remember, one's the fighting game.
Yep.
Dynasty Warriors 2 through 5 is very classically based after the book, in the sense that Wei's the bad guys, Wu's over there, Shu's the good guys. It's really 6 where they start going like, well, that's not really what happened. Wei's still very popular. People are pointing out, like, this is really unfair to Wei because it's just ignoring reality. And since Dynasty Warriors 6, the writing for all 3 factions have been more or less neutral, except for with Shu, who are still kind of presented as the good guys.
Yeah,
or at least
Shu,
at least in their own minds.
With Shu, a little more. It's like, okay, yes, Liu Bei was a virtuous man. He was a good man, but he was still a man.
Mm-hmm. Actually, I think the person who really sums up the problem with the writing of Shu, historically speaking, is Guan Yu himself, where there's no real proof of all of his feats. It's all folklore in the book.
And Guan Yu has essentially
Except
been deified.
His beard. The beard was real, because there's no way that survived for over 1,000 years.
Guan Yu is known for 2 things: being the god of war, and for having a really nice beard.
And having just the world's most impressive beard. Like, his beard had to be really cool if that's the thing that continuously got depicted all the time. It's like, no, this beard's legit.
People waxed rhapsodical about how beautiful that beard was. I think it was compared to, like, he had, like, his beard was like a woman's hair. It was, like, beautiful.
Actually, that's actually goes to the point of how he's usually depicted in the games, where his beard is much shinier and flatter than everyone else's, because he took so great care of it. It is soft as can be.
And he does have a very nice beard.
And it's so soft and nice, in fact, that the person who inherited that nice hair gene out of all of his kids was his daughter.
Go figure, and it shows.
Yeah. But yeah, so basically what happens is, I guess our problem with Shu is that a lot of them are sort of the goody good types, but then you kind of know anything about them and you're like, they could be more interesting, I think.
For me, yeah, and like I wouldn't mind if they dipped a little more into that morally gray side. Yeah. To me, a lot of the folks in Shu commit the greatest crime to me, which is that they're kind of boring.
They are kind of boring, and the problem is their actual historical counterpart are way more interesting.
Yeah.
Usually. That's not to say we don't like all the Shu characters. There's some we definitely love, including the greatest character who ever put to cinema and video games. That's right, we're talking about our man, Pong Tong.
Pong Tong, Pong Tong!
This tiny little weirdo who just goes around being smug.
He is 5'3", and he is smarter than you. Sometimes he dresses up like a moth.
Yeah. And he's neat.
He's great. Pong Tong is the best character, hands down.
Yeah.
Everybody else go home.
This smug little weirdo is better than you, and he will let you know.
He's the best, and he's the best thing to happen to Shu.
Mm-hmm. And that's that and Fa Zhang, who is another smart man, but he's like, you owe me monies.
Yes, I owe it. And yeah, Fa Zhang is like the token evil character of Shu. He was put in place to be evil. He's a man with a historically fairly sketchy history. He was really bent on, exacting revenge on people, and he was very vindictive. But by a lot of historical accounts, he was not a nice dude.
Yep.
But
and
here,
yeah.
But he's also like depicted as in his maybe mid-20s here and very attractive. So it's kind of evil in a hot way,
Which is why he's your favorite Shubi.
I'd say he's tied with Pong Tong.
You love him. Not that
I do like him.
Not that I'm saying anything bad about that. I just know which one you like.
He's fun. I just think he's neat.
Yeah. Like the problem I think we have with Shu isn't so much that they're like bad. It's just that the interesting ones are like Jiang Wei, because he's the world's most pathetic man.
Fucking wet.
Wet as can be, just trying to carry on his master's vision and failing miserably.
Chancellor.
Yue Ying, who is said master of Jiang Wei, Zhuge Liang's hot wife.
She's the hottest. And she's also really smart.
Yeah, she makes things.
She builds tanks.
Yeah.
Or I guess juggernauts as they're called here. Yeah. But they're tanks. They're fucking tanks that shoot fire.
And I guess we like
Wan Yingping, your girl.
Yeah, we like Yingping, mostly because she's this cute little lady, and then she can pick up a boulder.
She's very strong. That's her thing.
Yeah, she doesn't get much to do, sadly, because she shows up in mostly in post her dad dying material. That's the problem with like Shu after a certain point. It's like after Liu Bei, Zhang Fei, and Guan Yu all die, it's just like, well, that's it.
There's also Zhang Fei. We don't say much about Zhang Fei.
We used to say a lot about Zhang Fei, but out of politeness for those who like Zhang Fei and our memories of what we liked about Zhang Fei, this is where we're going to stop.
I like to carefully pull away Dynasty Warrior Zhang Fei from his everything to do with him historically, and say that on his own, in Dynasty Warriors, I think he's one of the more interesting Shu characters.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The problem is, once you know anything about the actual Zhang Fei, it kind of ruins the fun in a way that's just you really wish it didn't.
It sucks.
It's like, oh, I don't want to root for a bastard like this. Which, like, but then you're like, what about Cao Cao? Yeah, but Cao Cao owns being a bastard. They don't pretend that he's not a bastard.
Yeah.
Cao Cao walks in being like, I'm the baddest bitch here, and it's my ambition.
And also, Cao Cao was bad in kind of a girl boss way. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, like, the problem is, Zhang Fei, you can look it up, did something that is very, like, even by the time period, considered really bad.
Just flat, standard human behavior level,
Bad.
horrible.
And not even, like, the, like, I ordered this man to be killed kind of way. Like, Cao Cao got a lot of people killed on purpose. But at least it's, like, he's depicted as someone who is morally gray, so it's like, okay, that's within, purview. I think it's a nice way to put it.
At the risk of sounding unnuanced, the real Zhang Fei did something really evil.
Yes. Very, like,
and that's all.
Very specifically evil.
And that's all we'll say on the matter.
Yes.
But, other.
Other. So, we're going to start by stating there are two halves to other. We're going to start with the people who are not affiliated with Lu Bu.
Yes.
We're gonna be prepared, everyone. We're about to enter into a certain somebody's favorite character territory.
And I like all of these people very much. As a matter of course, I like everybody in the other category. I think they're all delightful.
They are delightful. I also like quite a few of these characters, so we're just gonna go over a couple of them, shall we?
Yes.
We're gonna start. We already talked about Dong Zhuo, so we're gonna start with Yuan Shao. There we go. I was like, wait,
Who I
going down the
also
list.
love. I love this man.
So
He's stupid.
to get a point is that Yuan Shao is Cao Cao's old friend from childhood. And they eventually will come to blows. He's part of the very important Yuan family. And I guess the best way to put it is he is by far the... How would you like to describe him?
He has Kenergy.
He has Kenergy, everybody.
He's a member of the nobility, and he will remind you of that at every available opportunity. He is clad in all gold armor. He has a dapper little mustache. He speaks like this.
Hello.
And he's just and he's also like a very competent, skilled fighter. He's a good leader beneath his bluster, but he's also just a doofus.
The best way to put it is he's a lot less competent than he thinks he is.
Because he thinks he's way more competent than anybody actually is.
Mm-hmm. And he's like, because of my family name, I must do this. And it's that a lot.
For the noble name of the Yuan family.
Also like that. That's what he's like. And that's not a bad thing. That's part of the reason why we like him is because that's what he's like the entire time.
I adore him utterly.
Yeah. I love him too because he's just so goofy.
And I also like his and Cao Cao's kind of like still friendship even after they start fighting.
And basically the best way to put it is he ultimately he isn't a bad guy. He just ends up on the wrong side against Cao Cao and gets absolutely crushed.
Yeah, he's not bad. He's just pompous and silly and overestimates himself.
Let's see. There's Zhang Jiao, who is the head of the Yellow Turban Rebellion. He's a wizard. He talks like this half the time.
Praise the heavens. He's very silly.
He's very silly. We love him mostly because he's goofy. Not because we particularly love him or not. I think that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, he's just a character that's like, haha, I like you.
Yeah, oh, you're silly. You're fun. There's Yuan Shu. That's Yuan Xiao's younger half-brother.
Sometimes cousin, depending on the source you're reading.
It once again, a lot of all that we're taking is sources from like nearly 2,000 years ago, and not all of it is 100% clear half the time. Point is, they are family, and he's the one with the delusions of grandeur.
Yes.
Note, the one who doesn't go, in my noble name, is the one who doesn't do that is the one with the delusions of grandeur.
Yuan Shu fucks up majorly.
Yeah, basically he gets hold of the Imperial Seal and says, I'm Emperor now, and everyone went, no.
Everyone disliked that.
Everyone disliked that.
Oh, there's also, more recently, Dong Bai, who is Dong Zhuo's granddaughter.
She's cute. I like her.
She's horrible, and I love her.
Oh, yeah, she's like this little gremlin of a girl. Who's a bitch.
She's an evil little brat, and her grandpa loves her very much, and I think that's very sweet. I don't know. I always love it when villains, like, love their family.
Oh, yeah. Like, her grandfather loves her. Like, it's the one person. Dong Zhuo hates everyone except his beloved little Dong Bai, and he's like, oh. Also, her design is great. Because
she has a very cool design.
She's got this sort of gothic Lolita look going on, which is really contrasts her from like the other younger girl characters, which is Diao Xiao. Is that the right one? Am I saying that right?
Chow Chow.
Yeah, Xiao Xiao, who is much more like upbeat and happy and like, hey guys.
I'm perky.
I'm the perky one who would be a cheerleader if this was like a high school.
But Dong Bai's just mean.
She's just mean. She's a mean little girl who laughs at who would push someone in the mud. Oh, she's great.
She's wonderful. And then we have, let's see.
There's Sao C, who we did mention. We don't really care that much about him.
He's the sex wizard.
He's the fact that we could say he's a sex wizard is probably the most nice things we could say about it. He's more fun in Wolong, where he actually does things.
Yes.
He's a sex wizard. We should. Men Hao is. We need to talk about him now.
Meng Huo, yes. I like him.
Yeah, they're part of the Namen people, who are tribes in southern China. He's a very large man who loves his wife.
He's a big, beautiful wife guy.
Big, beautiful wife.
And his wife, Zhurong, the goddess of fire. No, the god of fire. Forgive me. She describes herself as the god of
fire. She claims that.
I believe her.
If fire is being arguably the hottest person here, then the answer would be yes.
But she's so hot.
She is hot.
Yeah, she's a beautiful, buff woman who will beat your ass and who also loves her husband very much.
Yeah. They are very happy together, and she just does not bother wearing a lot of clothes. And you know what? Good for her.
I support her.
No, my favorite part is she has the huge guy, tiny girl thing going on with the two of them.
Yeah.
But she's also the tallest woman here. He's just really big.
Just huge. Just a huge dude.
She likes them large. Okay, we're dancing around the subject. It's time to start talking about them. We've been dancing around the Lu Bu people, so we've mentioned Lu Bu. We've talked about Lu Bu. It's time to actually talk about Lu Bu and his faction. And
Lubu is big and stupid.
Lubu can be best described as a very large man who's not very bright, very good at fighting. And he's also arguably the most popular character.
Everybody knows him.
Actually, I think he might be the most popular character according to polls.
That wouldn't surprise me.
And honestly, we get it.
Oh yeah, I can see the appeal.
Oh yeah, I mean, we don't need to see the appeal. We get it. He might not be our favorites, but I'm pretty sure if we were to do a top 10, he'd probably end up in the top 10 for both of us.
Oh yeah. He reminds me personally of Nathan Explosion.
A dumber, less together Nathan Explosion.
Yeah. Like, if Nathan Explosion didn't have the outlet of music.
Yeah, if his outlet was fighting warfare instead of death metal, then yeah, he would. And it's so great.
What's your favorite thing about Lubu?
I think my favorite thing about Lubu is that he just encompasses the idea of a boss character.
Yes.
Like, he's large, he's got fancy clothes, he has a big weapon, he's got a big sounding voice. He just encompasses the concept of this is the biggest badass that you fight at the end of the game type of character, and I think that's great.
The guy with the biggest health bar.
Yeah, the guy with the health bar that starts reaching towards the end of the screen or off screen. And he gets his own theme song. That's cool.
His strength level is, oh, fuck.
And, like, it's just, you don't get that too often. There's not many characters who just embody
hype.
Just the feeling of being that guy.
I love him so much. I love that in 8, his English dub makes him sound like he's talking in all caps all the time. Like, not even shouting, just talking in all caps.
Yeah, because shout out to Jameson Price, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
Who had been basically voicing him since 5. As just being, like, using his deepest, graveliest, angriest voice for everything.
Can someone provide me with a decent challenge?
And he's great. And, like, the thing is, he just is neat.
I like him. He's good.
He's neat.
And
to
expand upon that neatness,
we need to talk about one of the two things he has a soft spot for.
I was gonna say.
We need to talk about Diao-chan.
Yes.
The hottest woman in the room, according to a lot of things.
And God forbid if you think differently when Lubu is around.
If Lubu, surprisingly enough, a lot of these men are wife guys. Shocking amount of wife guys in this cast now that I think about it.
Lubu is the world's strongest simp.
He really, 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 really is. And he will be mad if you think he's not.
And Diao-chan was highly regarded as one of the great beauties of the time.
Which is funny because she does not exist.
She's not real.
She's never existed. She is based after someone who did exist, but not anyone in particular.
And throughout the games, she's kind of depicted as like she's a dancer, and like her design really reflects that. And her clothing gets skimpier and skimpier as the games progress.
Until they went less skimpy in 9. We're going to talk about 9 in a bit, I swear.
We'll get there.
Oh, we'll get there. Point is, she's hot. She's probably manipulating Lubu. Whether or not he knows this or not really depends on which game we're talking about.
Yep. She's a femme fatale.
She's a femme fatale. We could easily start a cover band. Point is, she's fun. I like her.
I like her a lot too. I think she's fun.
She's fun. And there's only one thing about her that I hate. And it has nothing to do with her or what I'm about to talk about because I'm using this as a segue. It's the fact that, despite the fact that she's now in the games, they don't really ever want to know how to have her interact with Lu Bu's other soft spot, and that's his actual literal daughter, Ling Chi. They don't know what to. They do not want to cover that relationship, and they are, in fact, cowards for doing so.
It's very sad, and it's very cowardly. Let's talk about Ling Chi.
Yeah, okay, so Ling Chi is much like Sun Cheng Xiang, where we know she's real. There's historical evidence that she's real, but no one knows what her name is, so they just called her Ling Chi. Ling Chi's my favorite. Well, one of my favorites. It's that and Wang Yi, but for very different reasons.
It's a bit about Ling Chi, Strauss.
Okay, not that different reasons now that I think about it. It's just that my reaction to them is very different.
Talk about your girl a little bit.
Well, much like her father, she's a warrior. She's daddy's little fighting machine. I mean, I just like the idea. Let's see. She's a toughie, but she hides the fact that she's secretly very emotional. And also, she carries Lu Bu's weapon from 6. Because people actually like the crossbike, just not on Lu Bu.
It fit her better.
It was a cool weapon that goes with a thing. It's just that Lu Bu is one of the few people in this time period who actually we know what weapon he used. Like, it's written down that he used this very specific halberd. That was his weapon of choice.
Yeah.
So, and taking that away, 6 did some things that people didn't like. We'll get there. And also, I love her design. She's just always
very good.
She has like the ultimate like I'm angry all the time look. She's so mad. She's so angry.
And her characterization is great because it like I think she does a very good job of reflecting how kind of fucked up a kid that was raised by Lu Bu would be. Because like she's tough, she's Betty Badass, but she's also very lonely and very socially awkward.
Yep.
And you really feel for her.
Yep. Like the problem the thing about her that makes her interesting is that she's very much a very like awkward person. Like all she knows how to do is fight. And that's all she like, and then like everything goes wrong.
Yeah, and her upbringing has already not been easy because I can't imagine that having Lu Bu as a dad would allow for a very robust social life. A lot of the dialogue you get with NPCs hints at that.
Yeah. Well, like, it's so funny because one of my favorite things in her thing is that she is some of the NPCs talk about like Ling Chi's very attractive and she's very pretty, but it does mean having Lu Bu as a father-in-law, and I don't really want to deal with that.
And there is the poor NPC who's like consistently in love with Ling Chi through the entire story.
Yeah. And then there's Yuan Shu's son who's obsessed with her because it's like, ah, my darling, and she's like, leave me alone, 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 leave me alone.
Because Yuan Shu and Lu Bu strike up like a tentative like marriage arrangement between their kids in exchange for like, you know, helping each other out, and Ling Chi's having none of it.
Yeah. It falls through, and he doesn't know when to say or no for an answer. In fairness, this was a politically arranged marriage. In his defense,
and she's like, "Fuck off forever." Thank you.
I guess he's just really into that, and you know, honestly, you know, all power to him. I say.
Blame him?
Yeah,
Can't blame him.
I mean, look at her. She's cute as can be.
She's adorable. She's very cute is the thing. She's just cute.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a nice piece of official art of her and like a bunch of like Mastiff puppies, I think. Like very fluffy little puppies.
Yeah, like, I think what makes her so funny because Ling Chi is in, like, the faction of, like, mostly warriors, like, Zhang Liao and her father. And she's like,
Mostly.
and it's like, the only other two characters is one that we're about to talk about, because I know it's going to happen. I have not forgotten him, of course I've not. Don't worry.
Saving the best for last.
No, I'm doing this for you. Well, no, there is one more character we're going to have to talk about, but we're going to
We'll get there.
We'll get there. The point is, it's just that, like, it's so funny to have this one character who's this, like, very normal person. Like, Ling Chi feels like she's definitely belongs to this faction, but somehow also doesn't at the same time.
She's just a kid.
Yeah.
She's baby.
She's baby. And yes, that's definitely the art. Oh, look at her with those dogs. She's so
She's a dog girl.
She has no idea what to do with all these dogs.
She's the girl with the dogs.
But okay, so one last character before we start, I guess, talking about the games as a whole, as in our recommendations. No,
insufferable.
No.
No.
We need to talk about Hao Xiang real quick.
Oh.
The other, he was added in 9. I love his official art.
Oh yeah, Hua Xiong. Yeah.
I love his official art and look is just like, I'm fucking, yeah.
I dig his look.
I dig it. Because it's like, it fits with the whole Dongjua thing of like, these guys are really strong, but they're all like very uncouth.
Yeah, he's got like kind of like the ruffian delinquent look to him. He's kind of punk rock.
Yeah, I just think he looks neat. He's not super important. I'm just glad he's here now.
I think if I remember correctly, he does wear lipstick, and I think that slaps.
Maybe. I don't.
He's got some kind of makeup on. It's cool.
I think he's got some eyeliner going on or something. It's hard to tell because I can't. It's like what part is helmet, which part is just his own eyes. Is sometimes a bit tricky with these things.
But the thing he's mostly known for is basically sacrificing himself to like get Lu Bu out of a bad situation. And in the game, he's portrayed as like kind of like a big, fierce lug who's like, he's tough, maybe not especially bright, but he actually means quite well, and he's pretty honorable.
Yeah, he's neat.
Yeah,
he is neat. Okay, Sardo, let the floodgates open.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
People are gonna be like, you skipped someone if I didn't do it this way. I'm just gonna here. I'm gonna do something for you. It is. I'm going to give you the word go, and I'll give you 5 whole minutes to just gush.
Oh, but I want to talk about him with you.
Oh no, that's for you starting off. And
okay,
go.
Chen Gong. I love Chen Gong so much. He's my life. He's my world. You
got 5 minutes to just get it all out before we start conversing.
Chen Gong is the strategist of Lu Bu. He originally served Cao Cao, and he served Dong Zhuo before that. Initially, he actually rescued Cao Cao from a very bad situation, and he served him for a while, and then he's like, fuck this guy. And then he's like, I'm going to serve Lu Bu, because he's the baddest bitch in town. And, 5'5", and he is constantly in motion, and Ross, I love him so much.
Okay, I want you to say you didn't even take up your whole 5 minutes. You didn't take up a minute. You got that all out of you so fast.
But he's Lu Bu's gay little advisor.
And we do mean gay in that, not necessarily in the gay sense, because
he's camp. He's camp.
We need to mention that because like how romantic characters are in this series is like on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being highly romantic, 2 being like not romantic at all, like 1 being not romantic at all. It's like a 3 to 2.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if they're not already stated as a couple, like, how romantic people get is basically none.
Yeah, 0.
Yeah.
But he is very camp. He serves cunt. He has terrible taste in bosses. He is both very smart and very stupid at the same time. What do you think of him, Strauss?
I mean, I don't love him as much as you do. And I don't think... I'm not even saying that as, like...
Nobody loves him as much as I do.
Like, you are the copy pasta of... If Chen Gong has 1 million fans, I am one of them. If he has no fans, I have died. And like I said, this is not me making fun of Sardo. It's just that there's no way I will ever match your love for him, and I'm okay with that.
It's impossible. Nobody can.
I'm very okay with that. I think he's neat, like how March holds a potato. Because, like, as a strategist, he's not the he's not the worst one, because Jugadong exists, so by default, he is better than Jugadong. Jugadong is the sad puppy of strategists. Chen Gong
is human.
Yeah. Chen Gong is, if I was to rate the strategist in competency, he would be 3rd from the bottom. He's better than Jiang Wei. He would have learned that if he was in Jiang Wei's spot, he would stop invading Shu Wei after a certain point. He'd be like, "This is stupid. It's not working." He's just dumb in other ways.
I think he's a little more like real than a lot of the strategist characters in this, because a lot of them, they are like flawless intellect, like peerless, super cool smart dudes, 5 steps ahead of everything, 12D chess. Shen Gong is just fucking trying his best.
He shacked himself up with like the worst person to pick.
And I mean, he looked at the strongest guy in the room and he's like, "Yeah, I'm good enough. I can handle that." And he couldn't handle that.
He really couldn't handle that. And he's just not that brilliant. He doesn't have as many resources. He's fun in that he's very camp and stupid.
I just think he's underappreciated.
I think that's fair. I feel like the problem is he's also in the faction with Lu Bu, who, in fairness,
better if
Lu Bu cast a very big shadow, and not just because he's really big,
but mostly because he's really big.
He is very big.
I also love him because I think he is technically the shortest person among Lu Bu's ranks. He is smaller than Ling Chi.
Yes, he's 5'5" by listed, and that he is slightly shorter by, let's see, 168 centimeters to, he's 3 centimeters shorter than Diao Chan.
He's just itty bitty. He's so little.
He's little. And he's
just a little
he's a little camp dork who he's definitely the mean theater kid.
Oh, yeah. And he's a bitch. He's such a bitch.
You love him so much.
Like, I love, my favorite thing is in 8, that bit where initially he defects over to Lu Bu and they like stage their attack on Cao Cao, and everybody is like, "Chen Gong, you traitorous slut." And he's like, "Yes, I am a traitorous slut." Also, props to Jason Wishnov for voicing the absolute fuck out of this guy.
It should be noted that him and Hiromu Miyazaki, who's his Japanese voice,
both of them,
they had to basically were told, you have to sound like this, and they both do it.
And it's a very... Somebody once told me he sounded like Archibald Asparagus from VeggieTales, and I'm very pissed off because it's true.
Well, the point is, he's your favorite.
I love him. I'm sorry.
I know.
I know I
I'm
went
not.
over my 5 minutes.
I know that, but that 5 minutes was just for you alone to have the floor to go on for as long as you wanted. You didn't use those 5 minutes. You can use the 4 minutes and 12 seconds somewhere else. Remember that.
He's
You have
my
that.
life.
Write that down. Write it down.
He's my life and my world, and I want to wad him up in a little ball and chew on him. Anyway,
Point is, he's your favorite. So I guess to start wrapping things up to a certain degree, we should talk about which games you should play if you want to get into this. If all of this weird, rambly nonsense sounds good to you,
well, golly, that's a tough question.
I would say if you wanted to get into this, there are two ways to go about it.
Mm-hmm.
You can either A, play the games proper, which is totally fine. You could also play Warriors Orochi, which lets you meet everybody. Play Warriors Orochi 3. That really, if there's one thing you walk away from this, Warriors Orochi 3, the Ultimate Edition, is the best game you could play. Is that fair?
Yes.
That's what got me into all of this. So play it. It's really fun.
It's so good.
It's so good. You don't need to play Warriors Orochi 1 or 2. They're not that important. They recap it for you. There's a recap in the game. Just read it real quick and you're good. It's neat.
Quick and easy. Best way to like get all your stuff in one go.
Yeah, not everything. There's characters missing because more games were released afterwards, but it gets you all of that you need to know. It gets you like 90% of both Samurai Warriors and Dynasty Warriors cast and some other characters too. Some really odd picks here and there, which is like the fun part. Characters who don't even belong to this franchise. Like, you don't even go here, Sophicia, but hey, welcome back. See, I knew I could bring back Soul Calibur at some point. But if you want to play strictly Dynasty Warriors, I think there is two games specifically you could play. Dynasty Warriors 7, which is considered the best written one, and I do kind of agree with that still, because the ending cutscene alone is like, damn.
Yeah.
This shit's good. The only downside with Dynasty Warriors 7 is everyone's outfit is maybe some of the worst outfits in the entire series. There's some really bad looks in that one.
There's some rough shit.
Like, hear us when we say this. Not everyone looks great all the time. That's fine. Lord Howdy was 7. Some of the outfits in 7 were a choice. Some of them were not bad. Like, Wang Yi looks great in 7.
Wang Yi always looks good.
She always looks good. But, like, her initial appearance, very good. Like it. Cool. Oh, God. Liang Shi's initial appearance is so bad. Her points, you know you're hot, and you drew a hot character when that's the look you're going to give her and just kind of roll with.
She made it look good.
She made it work.
But only because it was on her.
Yeah, only because it's her. Like, goddamn, was her 8 outfit such a massive upgrade. Same with her 9 outfit. We'll talk more about 9 in a second. But 7, great game. Legitimately one of the best ones in the series. Outfit choice, not so much.
Yeah, no.
I just think about poor Shang Xiang's horrible outfit in 7, like the weird like half cut out midriff section. Just
there was a lot of weird midriff cutouts in 7.
Yeah, there was a lot of like just like not everyone looked bad in 7, but some people definitely. Like I'm looking at the 7 outfit for her. Oh, that's not right. But I'm
Also-
looking at it, and it's just, ooh, God, was 8 and 9 so much better looking.
And
Or-
also in the 7 cutscenes, everybody looks weirdly sculpted out of bread dough.
Yeah, it was. I think it was their first time. It was their only second time working with HG, and it took them a couple of games to like make everyone look right. You know,
And not the most visually beautiful game, but very well written.
very well written, very fun to play. It just ignore the look, because if you look at the cutscenes, some of the cutscenes are like, "Oh, this is cool." I just wish everyone didn't look like a goddamn weirdo. When we say like everyone was dressed like a fucking freak, this is the one where everyone's dressed the most freakish. And I'm including 6, where one of these guys is dressed as a fucking moth.
Now, to be fair, that outfit fucked.
Oh no, the Pong Tong's moth outfit is actually fucking awesome. It's just really weird.
But I'm looking especially at Guo Huai with cleavage down to his like belly button on his sick old man body.
That is like the second most stripperific outfit of Diao Chan's career.
It's a choice.
There were choices in outfit design for 7 that, like, the worst part about 7's look is that some of them look great.
Yeah.
And, like, or, like, the idea behind them looks great. And then there's the rest of them. Oh, Lord, is there the rest of them.
If everybody looked bad, it would be different.
Like, some people have great outfits, some people have terrible outfits. And some people are just like, well, this was an option.
So, the other games that you would recommend?
I would also recommend 8.
Yes.
Specifically Extreme Legends, which is the expanded version for all that your good, necessary Lubu content. And because if I didn't say Extreme Legends, you would hurt me.
You'd also be hurting yourself too, because that's where Ling Chi is.
Yes, and also Chen Gong. That's why you would hurt me. It's like, you're not skipping my man.
Can't skip my man.
And that's really it, because you could play 3, which is generally considered like the best of the really old school ones pre-6. So you're probably wondering, Strauss, Sardo, why have you been telling everyone not to play 6? It made some choices.
6 was interesting.
6 made some choices specifically to the combat system that made it really tedious to play.
Yeah.
Which is fun, and it made some changes to character looks and to character weapon choices. People get really uppity when you remove a character's weapon. And that's understandable, because these weapons kind of become their thing. I think that's fair to say.
Iconic.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like, which is funny because they gave Sun Cheng Xiang this like weird hoops thing
Yeah.
when she's known as the Bow Princess. And the one time they gave her bow, people were pissed. But I got it. I understand.
It makes sense.
It's like, we love these things and how they look. It's special.
And you associate it with the character. It's kind of an extension of their personality and their vibe.
And trust me, we're going to talk more about changing people's weapons in a second.
Oh boy.
Because, also, some of the outfit choices were really bad in 6. Ma Choi's blonde hair.
I love Ma Chao with like the frosted tips.
It was so bad. It's like, everything about Ma Chao that, like, made him, like, visually interesting, they got rid of it.
As now he looks like he's gonna go to the mall to get some froyo
Yeah.
with his like big Jinko jeans. It's a bad look.
It's a bad look. And they gave him, like, a giant sword instead of the spear. Because, like, his whole look is, like, he has this really intricate, like, ostentatious armor, and it's neat. Like, as much as we personally aren't a huge fan of Ma Chao, we love his look.
He's known as Ma Chao the Splendid because
He
he
looks
he
splendid.
looked really good.
He has this splendid, sick armor, and it's awesome.
It's cool armor. It's fucking cool armor.
Like, we might not be the biggest fans of Ma Chao, but goddamn, did his look slap.
he was ranch, he was dressing.
Absolutely.
And they took that away from him.
Which is just rude. Just
Wrong.
rude. With that
So-
said, avoid 9. 9 was an overly ambitious idea that didn't work, and the only thing great about it is that everyone's outfit is absolutely stunning.
And everybody looks beautiful.
It might be, in terms of, like, hits versus misses in outfits, the most amount of hits.
It as somebody who purchased the game and does not play it very much. I play Nine Empires a fair bit more.
Yeah,
I
that should tell you a
mostly play it-
lot, actually.
I play it for photo mode.
Understand? Yeah, and I don't blame you because I bought it on release day. I played it. I played through all of South. They went back to the individual character stories, which was also a terrible idea. That one's less of you have to do the faction story. You have to do the faction story shit. There's too many characters to do individual character stories.
You're just making things difficult for yourself.
Yeah. I understand this game. The game's replayability is on the stuff you unlock.
Yeah.
It's just, man. Oh, it just doesn't work.
It's sad. It's like they tried to do a lot.
They tried to do an open world thing. It didn't work.
And there's a fair bit that it's like it's different and I hate it, and it's kind of like unsurprising fandom reaction, but I think there's a lot of very genuine criticisms to be had of the game because
I do agree there's a level of this is different and I hate it, but it's also a case of
I hate it because they mishandled this.
Yeah, this was the idea of it is neat. And if they actually managed to make it work, oh man, it would have worked.
Yeah.
It could have been the coolest one, but it just doesn't work. I think that's the nicest way to put it.
I think that's a good way of describing it. It's just a shame.
Yeah. It's a shame because the idea of Dynasty Warriors 9 as an open world sort of Dynasty Warriors game could have been neat. It just doesn't really work. The idea of it is cool, but it just doesn't work.
They tried.
At least they tried, and it had such a bad reaction that I don't think they're ever going to try it again. So
Nope.
Which is a shame because I do agree that with the thought process of Dynasty Warriors needed a shakeup. They'd made 7 straight games that were basically exactly the same, and they thought hey, maybe we should do something a little bit different. It just didn't work.
I think they need to do what Samurai Warriors 4 did and give you an additional dating simulator. I am so serious. You have no idea.
I mean, Sardo was never seen again after he realized he could date Chen Gong forever.
Husband.
Oh, that would lead to some interesting, I would love to see that if they ever did, a Dynasty Warriors dating simulator where you could romance any character you want. I am curious who would end up being number 1.
Oh, who do you think it would be?
See, that's the thing. I'm thinking about it, and I have 3 guesses.
Okay.
My number 1 guess is Sun Shengxiang. Only
Alright.
because she's been around the longest, she's cute, but she's also not that scary.
Yeah, she's approachable. She's kind of like girl next door in a fun tomboy kind of way.
Yeah. And mind you, not just because I like her, because I do. I want that to be made
Right.
abundantly clear. She's one of my favorites. It's just that it's hard, like, because, let's be super real, most of this cast is men.
Yeah.
But with that said, despite how much it is mostly men, it's just like, she's a girl, but she's been the first girl since day one. So she has that advantage of being around forever. And generally being likable.
Yeah.
Like, she's got all the tools for this to work.
And I think lots of people would generally love to steal her away from Liu Bei.
Yes. She deserved better than Liu Bei. Point
Oh, yeah.
is, everyone said, oh, she's cute. Also, she's just cute.
She's very cute.
I would say second, and this is going to be, second is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I think second would be Zhao Yun. Or Zhao Yun. Because one of these is the poster boy, and one of these guys, Zhao Yun is a poster boy. And he feels like the easy, like, main guy in a dating sim.
Yeah.
He's got that pre-built in, but Zhao Yu would give him a run for his money. Because despite
Definitely so.
the fact that his wife is literally in this game, despite the fact that his wife is literally in this game, I don't think anyone ships him with his wife.
I don't think that. Yeah, that's not convincing anybody to ship them.
They make his wife look like she's 12.
Yeah.
I don't know why they did that, which is funny because, like, Sun Tzu's wife is his wife's older sister, and she looks very young, but she just looks young. She's a lot more mature acting, which helps. God,
Yeah, whereas
personality changes everything so much.
yes, it does. I think Ling Chi would also be up there, like, majorly, at least as far as girls go.
Yeah, I think for girls, like, it's tough, and I think Liang Shi would be up there too.
Oh yeah.
And I would say for Wei's the weird one because they only got three women's. They only got the 3 women's, but you get the one who probably doesn't like you, the nice one, and the one who might stab you.
And I think it's the one that might stab you that would be the most popular.
I think so, actually. You know what it'd be? She'd be the one with the best written route.
Yes. Oh yeah. She'd
Like-
have like something really emotional.
Like, she's the quintessential, like, because you know how dating sims work. You have, like, the characters who are popular because they're cute, and they're, like, clearly pandering-ish to the audience, and then you have the one who's popular because everyone's like, this is the best written route, you need to do it.
Yes.
Now, as for the men, I'm going to leave the men's side up to you. Who do you think is going to be the best doing guy here, if that was the
Tong
case?
Tong. No question.
Okay, actual answer now, though.
No, that is my actual answer.
Wow, I'm gonna, like, all right, because I just thought you were doing it for funsies, because
No, I am deadly serious. He has charisma.
the man's got the riz.
He's
the kids
rizzed
call it.
up.
But actually, though, I would probably say Zhao Yun would be very popular, just because he's already
I
very
think it's-
popular.
It's a tie between Guojia and Fa Zhang. They're both extremely popular.
I think Guojia would definitely be popular, because I was thinking, like, who the guys would be, and I'm like, I forgot Guojia existed. In my defense, there's way too many characters in these games. It's easy to forget. You will be like, it's one of your favorites, and you forgot they exist for 5 minutes.
Too many goddamn men.
Case in point, poor Pong, duh. Most famous for dying in a really cool fashion.
Oh, he's so metal.
Carried his own coffin to his fateful duel with Guan Yu and died.
That dude fucks.
He do. But yeah, it's just... Yeah, Guojia, I think you're right. Guojia would probably be the most... I think Guojia wins. Because it's easy drama,
Oh yeah.
which helps. Not like an
Fa Zhang,
I think-
because like we all know Fa Zhang fucks.
Yeah. It's also interesting because obviously like the intersection of like how many people who would actually buy this is an interesting question. Oh, fun fact, do you know who plays Fa Zhang in English?
Ooh.
He was in something we've talked about in a previous episode.
Oh shit. Tell me, who is it?
I'll make this very easy. His name is one word and it's pluraled. It's Guts. He's the original English voice of Guts. It's Mark Darius.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
That is incredible.
Because his love light for you is like a truck.
Berserker.
But yeah, I think it. But yeah, avoid 9. It's just if you're gonna do it, play the Empire spinoff, which is the kind of sort of strategy based one.
And Empires is the I play with my Barbies in my little house version of Dynasty Warriors.
Don't make it your main one.
No.
Don't make it your main one. Only because like a lot of the character writing.
In the mainline games, you see them interact in their natural environment.
Yeah. Here you make them interact for funsies. And just kind of go off the rails.
I like to think of Empires as like the dollhouse versions of the games.
Oh yeah, absolutely. This is where you put them in weird situations and odd scenarios that would never happen in real life.
It's like I am inventing an elaborate soap opera with these characters that has no reason to happen.
Exactly. And you do it for the fun of it. You do it for the fun of it.
But play 7, play 8, maybe play 3 if you're feeling nasty.
Play 3 if you want to like emulate and go back and sort of see where Dynasty Warriors started really being Dynasty Warriors.
Find vintage Dynasty Warriors.
Sort of, especially you can play after that. You can decide you want to play 4 or 5, but you're probably like play 7 and 8. That's probably more than enough. There's a lot in these games. There really is.
I love these games so much.
I do too. We will talk more about our favorite characters another time, but because we've been rambling for almost 2.5 hours.
Jesus fuck.
I warned them. I warned them at the top of the podcast, like, hey, this is gonna be a long one.
You did.
I do not fuck around. But real quick, Sardo, the hell you been watching? Actually, I know it's not watching. It's been playing.
I got Baldur's Gate 3.
You've been infected by the Baldur's Gate 3. Any notes you want to give before we have an actual episode on it when we both finish a playthrough?
I want to preface this by saying I love Asterion very much. Big surprise. His sex scene is the goofiest fucking thing I've ever seen in my life. Comes out of the woods with his shirt off and his khakis on. Like, hello, darling. It's like, oh, you. Oh, it's great. I love the game. I have a problem.
Yeah.
Totally worth the hype.
Yeah, no, it probably potentially game of the year, which is saying something because there's like a Zelda game dropped this year, and that was really good.
Yeah. What you, Strauss?
Let's see. I finished Roadside Picnic recently.
Nice.
Do you know? Have you ever read Roadside Picnic?
I have.
Yeah. Less depressing than most Eastern European literature.
Surprised so.
Yeah. Fun little book. I highly recommend it. It's about people who go into the zone after aliens arrived.
The zone, but not AutoZone.
AutoZone was lost in the zone.
But it's a very interesting story.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Highly recommend it. Oh god, the meat grinder. But
There is
It's
gnarly shit in there.
there's some gnarly shit in there, and it's a good short book by two Soviet brothers who fought very long and hard to get their book published.
And hell yeah for them.
God, I wish they wrote more about how getting their book published, because that's like a whole nother. That could be a book longer than the book.
Oh yeah.
If you ever like, more recent editions have an afterwards by I forget which brother it is. I don't think it's Boris. I think Boris is the one.
Arkady?
I'm trying to remember which one died when. Hold on, I'm looking it up real quick. It's by I think it's by Boris, because Boris died.
Okay.
Because Boris died in 2012. Arkady died in 91.
All right.
And it's a shame they never really talked about it, because that's such a story.
Yes.
The way he describes it is so wild, about like Soviet bureaucracy and how publishing books were at the time, and it's just like, it's a good little thing. Go read
Very
it.
much so. Yeah.
Let's see, anything else I've been watching? Not really. I've been trying to finish up games that I've already been playing before The Man Who Erased His Name comes out next month.
Oh.
But yeah, I think this is an episode. We're not trying to fill. We're not filling for time here. We're probably going to talk about some stuff afterwards, because it's Friday night and it's not even midnight.
Yes.
But thank you all for coming. As always, this is the Skeleton Cube podcast. Sardo over here could be followed on Twitter for as long as Twitter is still up. And if you're listening to this post-Twitter, this is what our Twitter handles were back in the day. At Autopsy Garland and Marquis Belial for the art account. As for Uncle Death on Blue Sky and Twitch, you stream Mondays when these episodes drop.
Yes.
So later today at 6:30 p.m. Mountain Time, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm at Almighty Strauss on all platforms. I stream on Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. So tomorrow night, we're playing Yakuza 7 at this time. We're having a great time.
Looking forward to it.
And me too. We're actually almost done. That game's a lot shorter than we thought. We might have to do an episode on Like a Dragon at some point.
Hell yeah.
Like, specifically Like a Dragon. Maybe when we're closer to the release of Infinite Wealth.
I think so, yeah.
Where it's like, hey, this is what Like a Dragon was like, and this is what we think about it. But in the meantime, folks, thank you all for coming. We'll see you next time.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.